Paris, thank you. There has been a wave of anti-lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender laws being passed across the country as more people than ever before self-identify as LGBTQ. Just today, the Florida legislature passed the so-called Don't Say Gay bill, which Republican Governor Ron DeSantis is expected to sign. Take a look.
Do you really want them to be being taught about sex, and this is any sexual stuff, but I think clearly right now we see a lot of focus on the transgenderism, telling kids that they may be able to pick genders and all that. I don't think parents want that for these young kids.
So what effect are these laws having on the psychological health of LGBTQ kids and their parents? Are they constitutional? And do queer people have reason to fear for the future? Here to help answer those questions are Camilla Taylor, the Director of Constitutional Litigation for Lambda Legal, the oldest and largest national legal organization committed to the civil rights of lesbians, gay men, bisexuals, transgender people, and those with HIV. And Brian Mustansky, a professor of psychiatry and behavioral sciences at Northwestern University Feinberg School of Medicine, also the director of the Institute for Sexual and Gender Minority Health and Well-Being. Thanks to you both for joining us. So as we said, in Florida, the Parental Rights in Education bill, it's headed to Governor Ron DeSantis' desk. He's expected to sign it. Opponents have dubbed it the Don't Say Gay legislation. Camilla, starting with you, tell us exactly what this bill does and what is the penalty if the law is broken?
Well, it's a cruel and unconstitutional travesty. It would require teachers to out LGBTQ students if they have a suspicion that they might be LGBTQ to their parents, even if their parents are not affirming. And it would also suppress the ability of teachers to speak in affirming ways about sexual orientation and gender identity. And it raises the specter of a child, an elementary school child, for example, who might have two parents of the same sex, and that child would not be allowed to do a presentation during a unit when all of the other kids are invited to make presentations about their families, simply because their family structure includes a same-sex couple. It is absolutely going to be terrible for kids, and it's censorship and unconstitutional.
And I think supporters of the bill have said that, more specifically, the bill is designed to prevent, especially in the lower grades in elementary school, any sort of teaching or discussion about LGBTQ matters, gender identity, those topics.
That's right. Exactly.
Brian Mustansky, what kind of fear does this put on kids and teachers? I imagine it would have a chilling effect about being able to discuss this with kids.
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of research studies that have examined this from a variety of different angles. And what we see is that these social policies do have an effect on the mental health of the LGBT community. There have been studies that have looked at schools that have anti-bullying policies. There have been studies that have looked at the effects of laws that prohibited gay marriage as they were being passed in different states, seeing the negative effects that those kinds of policies have on the mental health of the LGBT community. So we can anticipate that these kinds of laws, because they seek to silence people, pretend like they don't exist, really will have negative effects on the mental health of LGBT young people and adults in those states. And I think it's worth pointing out that, LGBT people don't emerge at age 18 fully formed like the Greek goddess Aphrodite from the sea. They exist before the age of 18, and these laws aren't going to do anything to change that. LGBT people are still going to exist. The question is, are we going to silence them, stigmatize them, and make them feel bad about themselves in ways that are adversely going to affect the health of those citizens?
So Iowa is also the 11th state to prohibit transgender girls and women from participating in sports. Bills under consideration next door in Indiana as well as Missouri. Camilla, they say this is about leveling the playing field, but what about this argument ensures fair competition?
Well, this is another unconstitutional attack on transgender young people. And in the states where these athlete bans have passed, West Virginia, for example, we've managed to get it enjoined in court, which means that we've managed to get a court order that prevents this law from going into effect. There is absolutely no reason to target transgender young people who simply wish to participate in sports and receive all of the benefits of being part of a team, for example, that other young people are able to enjoy. And it is simply an example of creating a false narrative that's designed to attack kids and to prevent them from being fully included in school.
So moving to Texas, under the governor's order there, child abuse investigations are allowed into parents who allow puberty-blocking hormones for their trans children. But a judge has granted a request for a temporary restraining order on an investigation of a trans child and her parents. Brian Mustansky, coming to you first on this one. Tell us about these hormone blockers. Are they safe? How are they used?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to emphasize that the decision of whether young people and their families pursue gender-affirming treatments is a real personal decision between young people and their parents in collaboration with a multidisciplinary team of medical providers, often pediatricians and endocrinologists. These are not decisions that are entered lightly. This is something that's done with a lot of consideration and evaluation. Puberty suppressing hormones are just one example of the type of medical care that people can get as part of the gender affirming process. These types of hormones have been used to delay puberty, for example, since the 1980s. They're very well studied. They're reversible, and they're often used as a way to give young people more time to consider the development of their gender identity, to avoid the development of secondary sex characteristics like the Adam's apple and other things that are more difficult to change later in life. And so, these are many medical organizations like the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Psychiatric Association, Society for Research on Child Development. I could go on and on. Do not support these kinds of policies being proposed in Texas. They're really recommending that this be a decision between medical providers, the family, and the young person versus something that would be decided by state legislatures. And so, this is something widely studied and something that has international standards in terms of how it's approached.
There are more than 266 anti-LGBTQ plus bills under consideration in state legislatures across the country. This is according to the Human Rights Campaign. Camilla, will these laws stand up to judicial scrutiny? Are they going to make it past a court?
Absolutely not. They're already being toppled, but they're having a damaging effect nonetheless. We represent the family in Texas that is being targeted for a child abuse investigation as a result of Governor Abbott's letter. His letter, which was issued just before his contested primary, using trans children as a political football, redefined child abuse to include the types of care that Dr. Mustansky was just describing that are absolutely the standard of care and ethically required by all the major medical associations. And by targeting trans children in this way, Governor Abbott is targeting their health care, targeting their parents, causing them to fear the specter of being separated as a family, and causing all sorts of confusion among all sorts of medical professionals and teachers who qualify as mandatory reporters, and whether they're going to face some sort of penalty if they don't turn in families simply for doing what's medically advised.
And with, it sounds like a number of bills across the country, a lot of work for you all to do and something to keep an eye on for sure, but we'll have to leave it there. Thanks to Camilla Taylor and Brian Mustansky for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Brenda.